Hey everyone, how is everyone doing? This is still me, Rajiv and Peeyush on Rebel Radio. It's gonna be a great episode today because we are bringing it home. We are talking about the training rooms. We are talking about training rooms in the country in general, because we really want to talk about how we train in the country, and we really want to share what we have with you. What do you say, Piyush?
100%. This episode, we're also going to talk about a lot of questions that our fans or followers of this podcast keep sending us, or even people in general who do jujitsu in the country, the basic problems that they face, the basic questions that they have. Maybe go a little bit into the history and trivia of jujitsu itself, and then discuss some not so great practices. So it is going to be a fun episode. So let's start with it. What do you say?
Yeah, I think it's a great day. So let's do it. So the first topic of the day is age-old jiu-jitsu versus what's happening in the modern meta. So Piyush is uh, one of the guys that I know who studies a lot of jiu-jitsu in the country. So let's start with you.
Yeah, so let's talk about the old school jiu-jitsu versus the modern jiu-jitsu and how it has kind of evolved into something what we are seeing now versus 10 years back, or if you take a look at jiu-jitsu 20 years back, it used to look completely different, right?
Absolutely.
So 20 years back, we are talking about 90s,
Yeah.
and if you see the matches, it was dominated by obviously the gi jiu-jitsu,
Yes.
and now the meta has kind of shifted to nogi jiu-jitsu being much more popular. So let's try to just break it down very quickly for the people who are new to jiu-jitsu or who have just taken up jiu-jitsu in like past 2 3 years or maybe even this year, how techniques looked like in 90s versus what we do right now. So I remember watching matches from late 90s, and it used to be a lot of close guard, lots of basics, lots of fundamentals. We still did not have a lot of these fancy open guard that came along. I think it was around the late 90s when De La Riva became popular for the first time.
Yes.
And post that came Marcelo, who brought in the X guards, and that
Yes.
started a revolution in the open guard system completely. And from there, it has evolved into the Berimbolo era, which was
Yes.
by Rafael Mendes, Mendes brothers, then followed by Miao
Your
brothers.
brothers.
And then came the
Leg lock.
Nogi evolution, or Nogi revolution, I should say. And what do you think? What did you see the difference between the Nogi revolution as you were coming up in
I
that
think
era?
the Nogi revolution happened with the advent of the DDS. They started bringing in a lot of leg locks. I mean, it's we're still talking about 16, 17 when these guys were not a very uh, big name in the sports jiu-jitsu arena, especially in the Nogi segment. So these guys started getting in Eddie Cummings, Gary Tonon and the likes under coach John Danaher, and they started decimating people, getting them into ashis from everywhere. I mean, cross ashi, outside ashi. I mean, inside ashi, whatever you want to call them. So they started introducing the jiu-jitsu community into a lot of leg locks. So and obviously it caught up so well because they were winning everything, and
100%.
they were winning everything, and these matches were really really quick.
I saw Gordon share some of the footage from his Purple Belt days because now he's released the Leglock DVD
Yeah.
where he's doing these bet matches where he's flimsy little guy,
Yes.
Purple Belt, going and leg locking everyone with just standard Ashigaramis just because nobody at that point of time knew about what he looks like. I mean, people did know about it, but they did not know how to defend it.
Yes.
Because if you remember, there's a very old picture of Helio Gracie doing
Yeah.
a
E-
outside heel look.
Even if you look at Roy Dean in the
Yeah.
white belt to blue belt curriculum that he does get into heel look details, and I've seen some of his videos on
He
YouTube
does, he looks in the gi.
in the gi. So it was always there, but it was always thought to be a fringe move. It did not. It was not as massive
Systematic.
as the triangle or the guillotine or the armbar, which was definite, or the rear naked choke, as a matter of fact. But after a while, people started hitting outside and inside. He looks from everywhere and winning matches. And at the end of the day, sports will evolve when you start seeing certain techniques winning matches. So then like you correctly said, it was not an evolution, it was a revolution when the DDS squad actually introduced leg locks. And after that, what has happened? So many things, yeah?
Wrestling started to come into the picture. As Dana has always mentioned, there used to be like two big holes into jiu-jitsu. One was the leg lock meta because Sambo guys used to dominate the leg locks with their knee bars
Yes.
and heel hooks one off. And then we had guys like Dean Lister, who came to ADCC and just destroyed everyone with the outside heel hook, inside heel hook. And then people started to take notice. And even Dana got influenced by Dean
Lister.
Lister, who flies under the radar a lot of times because he's not very outspoken, as it seems. So post that, the wrestling thing happened, and now for the past two ADCC trials and ADCC itself, we are seeing the focus shift back to getting on a top position and then dominating from there. And now the latest, as we have discussed in our last few podcasts, the scrimmage wrestling,
Oh yeah,
the counter to the wrestling. So this is how we are moving right now.
I think so. I think it's high time we all catch up to it. The purpose of this podcast is to get our friends in the country, especially with Strangle just around the corner. So we want, definitely, we want all you guys to understand there are systems available everywhere. And like you said, scrimmage is the biggest thing. We've just been introduced to scrimmage. Peeyush has been heading the class. And we understand. I mean, suddenly things become so much clearer. So, playing bottom open guard is not the ideal scenario we can see. We can always get up, stand up, and start imposing our own top game. So after the heel looks, people started getting
Countering the heel hooks with the
countering the
back
heel looks,
takes.
countering heel looks with the back takes, and suddenly heel looks started losing its sheen because everyone was doing it. It's not that it's still not effective; it's very, very effective, but everyone was doing it. So there were people who were studying anti leg locks, and they were getting quite good at
Better
that.
at the defense.
Yeah, better at defense, and especially with the outside heel look, people were getting their backs taken and choked out. So I think it's slowly evolved into this beautiful sport, which is not just jiu-jitsu in itself. It's lost its identity
It's a
as
submission grappling.
it's a
now.
submission,
So it's
submit,
taken
like
over.
yeah, exactly. It's a mixture of sambo, jiu-jitsu. Now a huge amount of wrestling influence you can see in this game, and now judo has creeped into it. Yeah,
100%. And what is a testament to that is the Volkanovski match.
Absolutely.
Because this guy has never been a wrestler. He has just been competing in Australia where there is almost no wrestling. There is no international wrestling in Australia. And if he, with a pedigree like that, goes and dominates a guy like Islam on the feet, or at least gets out of those positions which nobody could escape from. So that really shows that BJJ or Jiu-Jitsu in general today is not just a butt-scooting martial art, which it was very famous for in the Berimbolo era, but now it has become something. And we see in so many MMA matches where people are heel-hooking people, because if you do not know the right way to react to it, you will definitely see people who are going for a leg attack, and as you rightly said, they will try to escape out of it. Either they will break their leg, like we saw in the Messi match,
Sumichi.
or they will get the other person will follow up to a better transitional position. It's just that with the matter of time. So people say leg locks don't work in MMA. I disagree with that. Leg locks will work if chained together with a different set of techniques.
Yeah, that brings us to chaining moves now. You just can't. The level of jiu-jitsu practitioners in India and also also around the world have gone up by notches. I mean, double digits and 4 times or 10 times, because you cannot just set up a triangle anymore. You'll have to chain a lot of moves to even get to some of the submissions that have stayed along with us for the longest time. So yeah, I think. And you correctly said Volkanovski versus Islam has brought in a lot of good highlight to Jiu-Jitsu. And thanks to Craig Jones and his team, Volkanovski made Dagestani wrestling look very, very weak. So I think that is...
Or it made it look very humane. Like,
Yeah, like
it
very
was not
human.
a juggernaut as they
Yeah,
were
because
pointing
everybody
it out to
thought
be.
he's going to take him down in the first round, choke him out. But my God.
I thought that. I thought that Volkanovski is going to get mauled. And I had to eat my words that day.
Yeah, it was.
And it reinforced my belief in, okay, whatever we are doing is actually not so bad.
Yes. So I think that is Jiu-Jitsu, guys. In the country, shall we discuss the, let's say, journey of or the evolution or revolution of Jiu-Jitsu in the country?
Sure. So I think Jiu-Jitsu is very in nascent phases still in India. And the point being that we still don't have a black belt per se. We have a couple of black belts here and there, but we are still waiting for a bunch of high-level black belts originating from the country, and we'll measure that when we see someone winning at the highest level.
Yes.
Just being a black belt is just a matter of having a belt around your waist, but if you don't have any accomplishments at the highest level of the sport, at the black belt level of the sport, I feel you can say that we still don't have black belts.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think things will change fast. We have few good people who are at the brown belt or the purple belt level who are going to get there in a matter of like next 5 years,
Yes.
6 years, and they'll be producing a new batch of fresh talent as the people's understanding grows. I think we'll have much more talented athletes coming out of India. So that's how I see Indian Jiu-Jitsu evolving.
This also brings me to the point that Jiu-Jitsu is still quite unsafe in the country. I mean, I'm not pointing
Or
fingers. Or
training grappling in general, I would say.
drilling grappling is still very, very injury prone because I think there are certain practices that have been vocally uh, been addressed by the greats like John Danaher and everything. So we'll be discussing a few things that we at Rebel look at, or we at Rebel say the do's and don'ts that we follow at Rebel. So let's start with a few points with you, then I'll add a few.
100%. So some techniques which really I cringe watching when I see some of these Instagram reels or training sessions of other academies, and this is not only in India but it's general worldwide phenomena where people are just training very recklessly. And jiu-jitsu is a sport or wrestling is a sport where your knees are everything. They are your greatest assets. And when I see someone going for a takedown and just hook someone's leg and drop his entire body weight, that is like, oh, I feel sad for them.
Of course, of
Because
course.
that kind of training will statistically result in someone getting injured for a long, long time. And it will be a catastrophic injury. It won't be a regular injury where you can just, oh, my foot popped, I'm back in like 2 months. My finger got dislocated, I'm back in like 3 weeks. It'll be 9 months, years, multiple years. You never know because a nagging knee injury will just keep coming back to haunt you,
Absolutely.
right? So that's a big one for me. People going for takedowns and being so careless about falling with their entire body weight on their training partner.
Can you shed light on a few moves that should not be practiced for safe keeping of all the members?
100%. So the two moves that I see as in the wrestling part of it, very, very common is people going to someone's back in a standing position, the rear body lock, and from there just chopping someone's knee down sideways by with their leg as they put their entire body weight and sag to the side. That's one of the most dangerous way to execute a trip. If you want to execute a safe trip, you have to do the rear or the reverse tai otoshi, where you turn your hips around, extend the leg, then drag people onto your extended leg, right? That's a safer version to do it, but you don't want to just hang your body weight and try to chop his legs sideways because our knees, as you saw in the clip that I uploaded yesterday, where Danner says our knees are meant to bend forwards and backwards. They're not meant to bend sideways. Lateral flexion is not available in the knee. So, anytime you're trying to put weight sideways on the knee, that's a big no-no and should be banned in the training room 100% of the time. And you have to be strict as a coach to not allow that because sometimes you just say and people still go on with it, or you have a visitor who just goes on with it. So you need to make it very, very clear if you have someone in the training room for the first time that okay, guys, this is not possible. This is not good. Other big one that I see is when people have the back. This happens in the beginner white belt class a lot. They'll have the back, they'll get the seat belt, they'll put the hooks in, and now because they are unable to break someone down sideways, they will just pull with their entire body weight backwards. And if someone is sitting in a turtle in a vulnerable spot and their toes are stuck and you just pull them backwards with your entire body weight hanging off them, it can really blow their knees out
Absolutely.
or at least twist their ankles and mangle it. So that's another big no-no which I always tell my students not to do in the training room. Apart from that, why don't you go ahead and tell us another one?
I think for me, like you said, a reverse Tanyotoshi is a safe way to do it. A Tanyotoshi, because you'll have to understand these are your knees. In fact, what we'll do is we'll make a few videos, and along with these, we'll try to put it so that you guys also understand what we're talking about. So, your knees, like you said, there is no lateral flexion in your knees. So, when you're trying to take someone down by just falling flat and pressing your hips towards the knees, that's where the problem occurs. Also, spiking people from the rear.
Yeah.
Spiking people is a dangerous thing to do. It might sound funny or it might just be sport. You're lifting people up and putting them on their heads
Head first.
head first. So that is gonna injure someone for the rest of his life. I remember one incident which I don't want to take names right now, but this poor guy has been paralyzed for life.
Oh, he was
Yeah.
my friend.
Yeah.
He was my training
He
partner.
was his training partner. I don't think so. Not just jiu-jitsu, he can't even walk properly. So this is not to
And I didn't do it, guys.
yeah,
He was my training partner.
this is not
but
to bring bad light to the training room or whatever. But again, we'll have to uh, have very, very strict guidelines towards what is good and what is allowed or what is not allowed. Another thing is jumping guards, my friend, especially if you're in a white belt scenario, if you've just begun and you grab the neck and suddenly you jump on someone, or you're just rolling and you see a few Instagram videos or YouTube videos where you see some people just jumping and getting into jumping
Flying
onto flying triangles and all that things, you will blow one's knee off, or somebody's going to blow your knees off. So before you guys get into a role, there should be clear instructions by the coaches first of all, and if not, between the two of you, that these are the things that we should be doing and these are the things we should not be doing. Also, if you're beginning and if you're so enthusiastic about wrestling, please take it easy. I mean, we as two coaches at Rebel, we make sure wrestling is only sparred at 30%. I mean, it's touch and go, touch and go, touch and go, because
And the reason why we say 30% is because you have to just double it.
Yeah.
Because people, that's how
Yeah.
they receive the instructions, white belts. So if you
Yeah.
say 30, it will be 60.
Yes.
If you say 50, it will be 100% of the time. So
also, Piyush, before we will move on, I had seen a video of a gym in Pune, probably, where this girl was flying into a flying
Oh.
Kani Basami.
that's another move that we should talk
Kani,
about.
Kani Basami, guys, please, if you don't know what a Kani Basami is, don't do it. Okay?
What is a Kani Basami? Let's just educate people.
Yeah, a Kani Basami is a scissoring action of your leg, where you jump towards somebody's leg. Your let's say top leg comes in front, your back leg, bottom leg goes behind, and you scissor him down on the floor. I mean, imagine the kind of damage it can be you can inflict on your partner. John Danaher's gym, no Kani Basamis. B team, no Kani Basamis. Standing Kani Basamis. Okay, so if you don't know what a Kani Basami is, please Google what a Kani Basami is. Kani Basami from the floor. When you're passing out, absolutely okay to do. But if you're standing up, no Kani Basamis.
Especially when you are standing up and wrestling, when it gets sweaty, you yourself don't have any control over your moves.
Ah,
So
good.
maybe you are trying it, you slipped, or maybe you are trying it, the partner moved an inch backward or
Yes.
forward. And that's when the dangerous breaks happen. Another thing is just as a general like awareness thing, whenever we are sparring, always watch out for the mat space and where the mat space is. Because sometimes what happens is I'll see this every single time. The roll starts in the center of the mat. Immediately people are on the edge about to fall off onto the hard ground, hard concrete surface or the wall. If you don't have wall mats in the gym, you should definitely ask your instructors to get that, because that's one of the most dangerous spots you can be in. So please have mat awareness and please reinforce this into your white belts from the very beginning, that if you find yourself nearing the edge of the mats, if you're trying to attempt a takedown, just stop it. It's not worth it. Those takedown do not count for shit. You have to bring it to the center, restart again. If you roll and get close to other set of people who are sparring, and this is what I cringed the most when I watched Pedigo submission fightings, Daisy Fresh videos.
Oh my God, Daisy
They
Fresh.
used to like be inches away from each other's faces and going hard as hell.
It was crazy.
So
Also, guys, the most important thing I think we both can tell you is learn how to tap. Okay?
tap in time.
Tap in time, because all of us want to be tough. We want to show that how tough we are. That's not worth it. I mean, I've heard a lot of people say don't tap two straight foot locks, but your leg does pop. You know,
Sometimes your tibia might break. You never know.
sometimes your tibia might break. So there's no point bringing in ego and thinking that you're a tough guy because you refuse to tap. I know a few guys who've undergone surgeries because they didn't want to tap.
Especially if you're not actively defending the
Yes.
move, just tap and then roll again.
Yeah, I mean, the only way to improve is to tap. I promise you, I've tapped more than I've had people in my guillotine or other stuff. So because I'm aware, I have to be aware, kill my ego, you know. So I think, what do you think? I think tapping is one of the best practices we can
100%.
imbibe in our students and our fellow jiu-jiteros. That tapping is not bad. showing up to mats is the best thing you can do, and tap enough. There is no such thing as you tap 10 times, tapped 100 times. It really doesn't matter. Nobody's counting. Nobody gives a rat's ass.
Training room tapping does not matter at all.
Yeah.
Like
Unless
if
and
you
until you are in the ADCC trials and you're fighting with Gordon Ryan, and if you win, you become the biggest name in the world. Go for it. It's your call then. What do you say?
Yeah, but you are 100% on money over there. So now let's talk about another age-old debate, which is very prevalent in jiu-jitsu, and sometimes people take it too far, way too far from realism. That is technique versus strength.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so people say, "Oh, technique conquers all." Kaioteha is a huge proponent of it. Then some people say, "Oh no, technique only works if people are of mismatched skill level." And strength works when people are of equal skill level. So, what's your opinion on that? When should you start focusing on becoming strong if you're not strong? And when should you start focusing on technique in your jiu-jitsu journey? So, let's say I'm a frail-looking guy, as I was when I started. Actually, I was not. I was a
Very big
big.
guy. Yeah.
I was a
I
big
don't want to call
ass.
him fat, but yeah.
I can call myself fat. So I
Yeah.
was a fat dude when I started, 96 kgs. That was the highest point.
Yeah.
And
Lowest point, I would say.
lowest point, hurting my feelings.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say you're a skinny dude, you start jiu-jitsu and you're always cautious about, oh, I'm very weak. Is it a right approach to start working on your strength at the same time, or do you want to just embrace the grind, suffer, and just continue working on your technique until it reaches a level, and then you work on strength? What do you think?
I think strength and conditioning is something that has been ignored for the longest time in jiu-jitsu, especially. I mean, if you look at things like cricket and even chess, they definitely employ strength and conditioning coaches, mental coaches, because after a while, the techniques that are around there will be with me and will be with him. So we want to get an edge out of something. That's why if you see some of our Olympians, more than the javelin throws, they are working out their explosiveness, their one rep maxes. So I think SNC is obviously an integral part of getting better at any sport, especially with jiu-jitsu becoming so big in the world and there is money coming in and we have people like Gordon Ryan. I mean, if you take an example of Gordon Ryan, I mean, look at him 5 years from now. He was a skinny dude, small little dude who went into EBI, and now suddenly in 5 years he looks like a freak of nature. And you can see Galvao, you can see Felipe Pena now lifting a lot. There are only a few exceptions to this, where I think Mikey Musumeci,
Marcelo himself.
Marcelo Garcia was like of the view that his weight regime actually interfered with his jiu-jitsu training, so he didn't want to do it. But that was Marcelo Garcia then because he was a genius. But today, everyone is a genius. There is information everywhere. When Marcelo Garcia introduced the X card, I mean, nobody knew what an X card was, or not a lot of people knew what an X card was, especially in the Nogi scenarios, especially his dummy sweep, double Kuuchi sweeps, his guillotines from hell. So now everybody has the same kind of information. So when you have the same kind of information and everybody is as hungry as I am or you are, I want to get an edge from somewhere to win a fight. What do you say?
And I think the problem is that sometimes people take these one or two exceptions to the rule
Yeah.
and then just generalize that as the true fact. So, like Marcelo Garcia is an obvious exception.
Have you seen his legs, bro?
His legs are thick as hell.
Yeah.
Lachlan Giles, other guy who swears that he does not do any SNC. Guys like Mikey Musumeci, I'm not too sure about, but these guys are very thin and fragile looking guy, and you'll see those memes all the time on in jiu-jitsu pages that, oh, this guy can do what this to this bodybuilder, which you would not expect as an average person. But my point is, these guys are exception because they are at the highest of the highest level. But if you're an average guy who's training in the training room and you're getting mauled and you are also working on your technique at the same time, because that's what you do in a jiu-jitsu class, work on technique, you need to take strength and conditioning, as you said. Maybe not conditioning because your conditioning needs are initially being met by rolling in jiu-jitsu, but at least your strength needs. Why? Because strength also, first of all, it makes your move work better because it will give you more power generation, more force production. but at the same time, it will prevent you from injuries.
Yes.
So if I see someone who is super thin and somebody strong has got a kimura on him, I'm always wondering like, what if his hand just snaps in half? Whereas having that thick layer of protection
Yeah.
in form of muscles will actually be a deterrent to injuries.
Yes.
Right. So just from the injury prevention point of view, I think taking your SNC seriously, as you said, is very important. And I think we have introduced a SNC program as well
Yeah,
at
we
Rebel.
have Nehansh now, fantastic guy who switched from athletics to MMA because he loves the sport. So we're happy to have him here, and we have a solid strength and conditioning program here. So Peeyush though goes to Open Box. Shout out to them, great place to be. They have great coaches over there, but I think Peeyush has great ambitions to hopefully win the trial someday. So if you've seen the minus 88 kilogram guys, we are looking at Craig.
They are 100 kg guys. They are
They are
not
100, basically 100
100
kilo guys cut down to 88 kgs, and they are monsters. And the strength and conditioning routine is insane. If you don't believe me, just look at Michael Chandler's videos. And look at the way he explodes. Look at anyone who's an elite athlete today. They are spending equal time, if not more, in strength and conditioning and just hitting the pads or doing wrestling or doing jiu-jitsu.
Even smaller guys like Aljamain Sterling at 135 weight division.
Yeah, of course.
They are like cutting huge weights and they are freakishly strong in their own weight division.
Anything that gives you an edge to become a champion, bro. I think if you're a hobbyist trying to just lose weight through jiu-jitsu, you don't have to do much.
Right.
But if you have good ambitions to actually compete at the elitist level, I think SNC will make sure that you get there. If nothing else, you look fantastic also. You know, I mean, that's a bonus, isn't it? But yeah, we will get back to this debate in just 1 minute. We'll be back. We are still Rebel Radio. All right, welcome back. We were talking about the importance of SNC for an athlete, be it whatever, cricket, football, especially in our case, we were talking about jiu-jitsu. We were talking about how important SNC is, and it will always be because it is going to be the biggest sport in the world soon enough. MMA already is there rubbing shoulders with the likes of football. And BJJ, obviously, not inside our borders, but outside, it's a very, very popular sport. Yeah. So from there, Piyush, obviously, we've established that SNC is an integral part of any kind of sport, especially in Jiu-Jitsu. I think it is very evident in the both of us that we both go through a strict regimen of SNC. So going forward from there, let's talk about the new way of learning things.
Yeah. So one question that we get a lot is, and our white belts ask us, a lot of people who message us ask us, how to improve faster at BJJ. So what are the most effective methods that you can use? Because we have seen the example. Yesterday I was watching the documentary of Giancarlo Bodoni.
Okay.
Okay, so this guy used to be a gi guy forever. He comes to train with Gordon Ryan and the New Wave team, the newly made New Wave team in Austin, right before the ADCC, and maybe 6 to 8 months earlier. And in that 8 months of training with them, he goes on and beats the legend in terms of Matheus Diniz.
Oh, yeah.
He beats Lucas Barbosa in the finals and gets 3 submissions out of the 4 matches and becomes the under 88 kg world champion at ADCC. So that really shows us how you can improve very, very quickly in Jiu-Jitsu, right? So what do you think about that?
I think you're right. I mean, like everything else, we have to be in a position to let go of what is traditional. Whenever we've let go of things traditional and embraced whatever is happening in the modern era, that's when we get better. And especially in case of Giancarlo. I mean, look at what he did. I mean, a gi guy. Even Meregali is over there. Look at how he just evolved into one of the best nogi grapplers in no time at all.
Yeah.
So, and because he's training with the genius mind, especially with the training room, and obviously under Danaher, we've seen the kind of athletes that he's created, and everything that he does is anti-establishment. He's not afraid to challenge what has been done for donkey's years. He's not afraid to say, okay, maybe this is good, but maybe I can make it great. And once that is done, and he also goes on to find even way more efficient ways to doing the same thing again. So I think at the end of the day, we have to, because like we discussed, like you correctly said, Jiu-Jitsu is still very, very new. 1993 is the time when the world was introduced to jiu-jitsu, the world. Okay? From there to, it's been
30
30 years.
years.
30 years is nothing for a martial
Whereas
art.
other sports are like 100, 200.
500, 500 thousands of years. I mean, the Chinese have been doing kung fu for ages. Judo has been around for ages. Boxing has been around for ages. So, like you said, we have to start embracing whatever is happening in the current scenario, especially in the sports jiu-jitsu circuit.
So let's talk like more locally because I've seen your jiu-jitsu improve by leaps and bounds in last 2 years versus what you say you had improved in last 7 to 8 years of your
Easily.
training. So what have you incorporated which has made your game reach the next level and made you much more better grappler than you were in 2 years versus the 8 years of your earlier training?
What happened to me was earlier we used to train jiu-jitsu, but there was no systematic approach towards training. I mean, there was not a framework that I could follow. Okay, this week we'll be doing mount system, attacking from the mount. This way, next week let's go into just reversing the position and defending from the bottom.
Right.
Next time we'll play the open guard, and the third defending the open guard. Next time we'll be passing the open guard. And obviously, leg locks was still a big no uh, at that time. Or I was not introduced to good leg locking systems, not in the correct way. Okay, so in the last 2 years, once I met you guys and I saw that you guys were studying, you guys were doing things that I had not seen because I've been doing jiu-jitsu way, I think at least 3 to 4 years more than you have.
I think more than that.
More than that. So, but when I started seeing your game had evolved from being an average game to becoming a hugely dynamic flow where you were you were able to get me into whatever positions and keep me there for the longest time. I mean, to tell you honestly, we did not know how 5 ways to escape from side control. We did not know reactions and actions. We just say, okay, this is the side control. Okay, haath idhar dalo, ye karo, and get out of there. But why are we doing this?
Basically one-off techniques,
One
right?
of techniques, and also why not chaining it? But for example, you on my side control, you will have 4 to 5 reactions,
Right.
right? So you will not one reaction. I cannot just make my game around one reaction.
And all those reactions flow between each other,
Yes.
right?
So that's what I learned from you and some of my friends who I've been training with, and that's why I think you see some improvement in my game. Especially, we've also demystified heel hooks.
Right.
We've demystified. We've done so many systems so far. We get into positionals now. When people get you into heel hooks, you're not that scared because believe me, when 2 years ago when somebody touched my heel, it was a tap. Touched my heel.
Yeah.
Forget about. I didn't even know the difference between an inside heel hook and an outside heel hook.
So, as you correctly pointed out, number one factor which will improve you and make your progress faster is gaining more information,
Yes.
right? Because most of us are very clueless when we start. And even let's say you have trained for 5 to 6 years, if you're not studying, as you mentioned, you'll still be clueless about the positional knowledge, what position you are in, what's the right way to escape this position, what's the right way to hold this position, how to connect this position to a different position, how to connect the side control to the mount. Maybe you know one or two methods, but what if it does this kind of reaction and you don't have an answer for that, right? So number one method, in my opinion, in my personal experience at improving at jiu-jitsu is just to collect a lot of information. And when I say information, it's not random YouTube or random Instagram reel information. It's information by the most trusted minds in the sport. It's information by the most legitimate authority on the sport, people who are at the highest level, who have tested the stuff out for you. And that comes from a variety of factors like studying their DVDs, watching their content on YouTube, and only their content, like the most elite people, as I said, who are at the top, because that system is tested out, right? And the third one is applying, having a egoless mind to apply it in the training room. Because if you go with an approach in the training room, oh, I'm training since 6 to 7 years, and this is what I like about your perspective now is, or even earlier, you were always willing to learn. You had an open mind where you wouldn't feel like, oh, I've been a blue belt for 4 years now, and this is a white belt, so I cannot learn from them. If you keep that kind of mindset, or if you keep a mindset, as we discussed earlier, that you are willing to tap to explore new positions, and I remember Dana made a reel about this, that it's absolutely foolish to think that you're going to learn something without losing sometimes, right? So you have to be willing to lose positions, lose and tap in submissions if you want to learn. If you try to keep holding on to your ego and say, oh no, I cannot get tapped by this white belt because I'm experimenting this armbar escape, you're never going to learn. And that'll be the unfortunate case because it just spirals into you getting worse while the rest of the world catches up and becomes better. And then you keep holding on to that one victory that you had for someone for longer and longer and longer, and now you never improve.
Absolutely.
So first is the gaining information part. Second is removing ego from yourself and putting yourself in bad spots, vulnerable spots where the growth really happens. What are the things that you studying we discussed? So
Start
what
drilling.
yeah.
Drilling, guys. Drilling, I've learned from some of the guys, is 5 minutes on the clock. One move for 5 minutes, one side. You take one break and do the same move on the other side. Do at least 5 rounds per day. And like we were discussing, try to apply that. Roll with lower belts, people that you trust, and give them those positions. And if they catch you, good for them. Tap.
Yeah.
Good for them.
That's a big one again. Trying to apply the moves that you're learning or experimenting on someone of a lower or inferior skill level. Because if you try to, let's say, drill a move, a rear naked choke escape or a back escape, let's say, and you go to someone who is better than in jiu-jitsu than you and more of a higher skill level, and you try to apply that, you'll get frustrated because now suddenly your move does not work. You cannot escape because they know what's going to happen, or probably they have seen that before. So to make that work, you have to go to a lesser skill level person, try to just get your body mechanics right while you're
Absolutely.
applying it, and then try to bring it to the more advanced person.
Yes.
So
Because if you do not drill, you don't know what to do. I mean, just we've been studying scrimmage for the last 1 month. Just because we study scrimmage doesn't make us experts in scrimmage. So in the last 14 years, we've been only doing positional rounds. Another thing, Piyush, I think in my opinion, is we don't do enough positional rounds.
right.
If you do not do enough positional rounds, you're always playing. You're going to be playing your A game, always. There's nothing much you can do. I mean, if you want to get into leg locks, if you want to defend or attack 50-50 positions, get to 50-50 first. And talk to your partner. If you catch me, I tap. If I catch you, you tap. If I escape, again, it's timer stop and we go back. As soon as you get back, don't start engaging in your e-game. I think that's what I've learned from all you guys. Positionals are key. We will, like I said, scrimmage now, finally, after about a month, I'm beginning to slowly understand what to do. And my body is reacting during a live roll.
Right.
So I think that is very, very important. Studying, guys, the resources are out there. So just download them, take the time to study 1 hour, 1.5 hours, half an hour, and drill them, even if it's two moves. And please do not teach students moves that you learn off Instagrams. Because that only,
Unless it is my Instagram.
yeah, I mean, that you can do. Yeah, because his information,
or someone's legit
no, because
Instagram.
that you can do. And also, see, for example, buggy choke is so big right now. Yeah. So some people don't even know how to hip escape properly. And they're trying buggy chokes. For me, that's, I think, not moving in the right direction. Gaurav.
Right.
For example, imagine a student, I come to you and this is my first week.
We
and
have
let's
our
do,
student Sachin who does not know even one side control escape.
yeah.
And again, it's our fault also because we ask him to drill all the time. He never drills and we just let him go. But he is a master of buggy chokes. So every single time you try to pass his guard, he'll give up the side control, he'll try to buggy you. Obviously, it will work on all the white belts, but once they start to get savvy, once he tries to apply it on a high level person, it never works. So there's no growth happening there.
Also, I think people need to understand the difference between a trick and a technique. A buggy choke, in my opinion, humble opinion, is a trick. People will understand. You will have to let people go to the side control, then you can transfer the buggy. But whereas if you want to take the back from the mount, you can make it happen.
Yeah.
You
It's
know?
a great trick.
Yeah.
A lot of people have won great matches with it. But the thing is, with tricks, is that people eventually figure it out.
Yes.
And whereas a position like mount is unstoppable even if you figure it out.
I mean, Piyush, you've been studying for the longest time. I think you're one of the guys who studies more than anyone that I know. I mean, name 5 DVDs or 5 resources for someone starting, let's say it's his first month, yeah, or even his first year, where do you want to point them and say, okay, these are the 5 DVDs that you should study?
So first year is the right place to start, in my opinion, because when I started within 3 months of doing Gracie combatives, I was like, okay, I've been doing too much of Gracie combatives. Now I need to learn some more of what Jiu-Jitsu positions have to offer. So during that time, I got my hands on Ryan Hall's videos, and he used to be the superstar teacher at that point of time when Danner was not so famous. This was back in 2017 when I started, and from 2018, I think the Enter the System series came along. But watching him was really eye opening because he went into a lot of conceptual details. His way of approaching jiu-jitsu was very different. And again, he was chaining techniques. He was like, okay, if X does not work, Y would go. If Y does not work, Z would go, right? But a lot of instructors who had the DVD in the contemporary times, they were all like, okay, guys, so here is close guard opening. Now here is seat belt to back take. Now here the third DVD, the third move that I'm doing is a X guard sweep. So that way of learning is very convoluted. So if you are approaching instructional, you have to learn a system. And I think, in my opinion, the best introductory system in Jiu-Jitsu is Enter the System series. Okay, so if you have trained for a year, get your hands on Enter the System. And then some people take it completely in a different direction. So we have another student, Ash. I asked him to study DVDs, and he tells me, oh, he downloaded all of Gordon Rand's recent DVDs where he is showing them the joint lock escapes and everything. I was like, bro, have you even heard Gordon talk for like in 10 minutes stretch? He will show you like 5 different options from one positions, and then you'll be like, what the hell should I do?
Absolutely.
So start with Danaher. He has much more conceptual approach. The greatest skill of Danaher is taking complex positions and breaking it down in principles which will be applicable everywhere. And you have to see it to understand it, to feel it, what I'm saying. So start with Danner, Enter the System. I think he has 6 DVD series in that where he goes into leg locks, front head lock, all basically positions or submissions which are important, the arm bars, the kimuras, the best way to do those submissions also, because a lot of people think that they know arm bars. And then when I see them finish an armbar, they'll be going 2 hands on the elbow and trying to yank it back, sometimes hitting the wrist in their own face, right? So they don't even know how to actually unlock the hands from the armbar. So Enter the System series would be my number one pick, and this should be followed maybe till a year or two, because you cannot. It took us like what 3-4 years to get used to the Enter the
Easy,
System
easy.
series. It came out in 2018 and then kept coming out till 2021, and then Dana moved on to the New Wave series. So start with the Enter the Series system, and there is so much content over there. Anyone who asks me about any DVD, I just Dana, forgive me, but I just send them the Enter the System series.
Yes.
So you can start from there. What do you think people should study
I
for
think so.
NDA?
I think that's Enter the System is basically your offensive cycle. That you'll understand. Okay, this is how I move. This is how I change submissions. And obviously, after that, once you are getting there, you can also study them simultaneously and exit the system.
100%.
I mean, escapes. Again, Danaher is the guy to go to because his details nobody can question. It gets watered down when it comes to Gary and everyone else. But if you studied John Danaher's system, your
Positional and
your
submissions.
positionals and your conceptual the ideas about how I get submitted and how just a millimeter or two of movement can save you from that submission and potentially also get you into a counter-attack system. So I think that is very, very important for you to understand. So after enter the system, study Danaher, all escapes. Then obviously, because guard passing is still a myth in the country, people are just guard passing everywhere. I think after that, the open guard series or the closed guard series or the guard passing series, I think is the way forward.
Yeah.
And from there, by the time you reach these DVDs and finish them, you will have found your mojo. You would have understood, okay, these are the things that I can do, these are the things I can't do. And from there, your conceptual understanding of things would have been broadened to a much bigger scale. So then you can pick and choose if you want to do leg locks by Lachlan Giles, if you want to do leg locks by John Danaher, Gary Tonon, Craig Jones, that the journey then becomes yours.
Your
Yeah.
IQ becomes much
Yeah.
better by then.
Because your positional awareness becomes way better. Your braking mechanics. A lot of people, like you said, some people are still breaking the arm bars on the groin. I mean, there have this DVD was out 5 to 6 years ago. Please have a look at the DVD. So you guys will get there. So what next? So I think that's kind of enough information. Like we always discuss, if you have more questions regarding these things, please do not hesitate to either get us on Rebel Radio India, hit him up on
Magic
it,
Man.
magicman.13, because he'll be more than happy to send you stuff. Don't send it to me because I don't do
I
that.
will not, guys. I do not believe in piracy.
Or you can just send it to Rebel MMA India, or just send it anywhere. Get your basics in place. Then we can all collaborate into getting Indian Jiu-Jitsu to the next level. So moving on from this, or should we move on? Do you have something to add?
So I have another fun question for you. Um, Again, we are talking about Jiu-Jitsu and its evolution, Jiu-Jitsu in Indian perspective. But let's talk about the legends of Jiu-Jitsu, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So
let's go.
the people who have really influenced Jiu-Jitsu. And I think this is good to mention for people who are younger in the sport, because you should always know your roots. You should always know the history, how your sport has evolved. So you should not just be fancied by the Gordon Ryans and the Gary Tonans of today, because there have been people who have put a lot of work in the past for the sport to reach where it is today, and why you know this sport today. So let's do a top five. Top five should
Top
be
five
good.
is- yeah.
Top five people who have influenced the, or top five legends, I would say, who have influenced the sport into becoming what it is today.
For me, if you
Let's start from number fifth.
okay, I'd already made a list from 1 to 5. I have to go back. So I'm going to start from top, if that's okay with you.
You mean the
Number one. Number
person?
one guy.
No,
Number-
let's
from the
save
bottom.
that for the last.
From the bottom,
Okay, actually, let's start from the number one.
for me, number one will always be Marcelo Garcia, in my opinion, because that's when I started understanding Jiu-Jitsu through his roles on YouTube, because most of the things I did not understand, to tell you honestly. But that was exactly what I wanted to become, because it made it look so easy. Marcelo Garcia's roles are not fancy. He's not berimboling you. He's not getting underneath, grabbing your leg or getting into knee bars. He's moving into positions, taking your back, choking you out, or guillotining you. So that was kind of simplified jiu-jitsu for me. And I thought I could also probably do it. But obviously at that time when I was looking at him, my jiu-jitsu knowledge was next to nothing. So what I thought was easy were actually moves chained after one after the other in perfect sync, so that he could actually expose the neck and get him.
100%.
So Marcelo Garcia, number one for me. After that,
I'll just
yeah.
stop you right there, because I want to sing some praises for Marcelo Garcia
Yeah, of
also.
course, go for it.
So as I was talking about the point earlier, that today people watch the B team videos and these contents and they feel like, oh, it's so cool. Actually, Marcelo Garcia was the first guy to do this, where he had the MG in action videos, remember?
Oh my God.
Which people were drooling over, and this was back in 2010s, 2012,
Yeah.
when people were when the sport was also super new. It was proliferating in the US, and back then he made all these videos, putting all these high level guys on the highlight reel of his own. The social media was not so huge then, so we didn't get to see it as much apart from the YouTube. You had to go to YouTube. But as you said, watching his roles really influenced a lot of other people jiu-jitsu, because he was a smaller guy. And for a small guy to technically do whatever he wanted, play around with world-class black belts like Ryan Hall, Ben Askren, I don't know, he was a black
JT
belt back then,
Torres.
Jerry Torres,
Bernardo Faria.
Bernardo Faria, who was a heavyweight back then and heavyweight world champion. So Marcelo really paved the way for the sport that Jiu-Jitsu became today, because he made Jiu-Jitsu single-handedly one of the biggest sport in that era, right? Because Marcelo Garcia, as I said, smaller guy, technique over strength, lesser strength, more technique, obviously. And then his game. He could use the same guillotine, the same back takes, the same X guard sweeps on anyone in the world, and you could do nothing to stop it. And not only in the gym, but he was also an ADCC world champion,
4 times.
ADCC medalist, and he beat guys like Crone Gracie, which is not a easy thing to say, have on your resume, and he did it effortlessly. So Marcelo Garcia, definitely one of the legends. That
Yeah.
was a great number fifth pick.
Yeah, number one.
Number one pick. Oh, sorry,
Number
my
one.
bad.
Also, right now Marcelo is fighting cancer, so I
That's a
hope,
sad one. Yeah.
Professor, you get better soon because you have influenced a lot of my jiu-jitsu personally. So I wish you all the best, and I hopefully you get out of this nonsensical disease that's troubling you. And your chemotherapy has started, I know, and we wish you all the best.
The whole jiu-jitsu community is basically rooting for him to
Because we
get
cannot.
out strong.
I mean, he has to win this. He has to win this final battle. Then we can still keep learning from him. So, what has been your number one pick?
So I've thought about the number one pick, and I would take it like way back since we are talking in terms of how jiu-jitsu is today, what it is. And there's this guy, very well known. His pictures are almost in a lot of gym who follow the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu system. It's not Helio, it's actually Mitsuo Maeda, or it's also known as Count Koma. Okay, so just a little bit of trivia or history behind this guy. So Jigoro Kano is known as the father of judo, right? Because he took judo from a primitive martial art called Japanese Jiujitsu and really systemized all the throws, all the techniques, Nevaza section, the Ashivaza section, and everything, made it into a coherent and learnable system, right? And he did it, Jigoro did it in a time where there were very few instructors, and he himself couldn't find any instructors. And then comes this guy who was his brightest pupil, Mitsuo Maeda. And he started implementing a lot of Nevaza techniques which people hadn't seen in judo before. Because I think he came from a sumo background, or at least he had some sumo knowledge or samurai knowledge. So he started using those techniques which people had not seen, and it was more ground based. And then when Japan opened up for the world in 1900s and started mixing up more with the global world, uh, Kano had to send some of his brightest students to America for exposing judo to a global audience, just like how the Brazilians did later. And he chose his brightest pupil, Mutsuo Maeda, to go and do these fight against different martial arts style. So he went to Europe, won a lot of matches there under the flagship of judo. He goes to Japan, he goes to US, wins a lot of matches there. And then fortunately, he ends up in Brazil, where he meets Gustavo Gracie, who was the father of Carlos Gracie Sr. And Gustavo wanted to teach his son jiu-jitsu or judo at that time. And he met this guy who was super high level, who was submitting everyone in the local scene. People hadn't seen arm bars before. People hadn't seen rear naked chokes before, because judo was primarily a art of throwing. And this guy introduced the Gracie family to jiu-jitsu, and then the Gracie family just took it from there. So Mitsuo Maeda, if he did not have come to Brazil, probably the Brazilian would be missing from the jiu-jitsu and everything which comes along with it.
There
So
you
that's
go.
my number one.
There you go. History. We're still on top five picks of the legends in Jiu-Jitsu. We'll be right back after a short break. So we are still with the top five picks of the legends in Jiu-Jitsu. I picked Marcelo. He picked some Japanese guy
Mitsuo Maeda, not some Japanese guy.
because I couldn't pronounce his name. Mitsuo
We'll call
Maeda.
him Count Koma. That's
Count
like
Koma.
his
Yeah,
fight name.
I can remember that. Count Koma. So obviously great
Bro,
history
you
because
talk all Japanese all day. The
I know
Kani Basami,
this,
the
to tell you honestly, guys, I did not know about this history.
Ashigarami.
I didn't know. I just knew.
I think a lot of people don't know about
I
it.
did
That's
not
so
know about it
important.
because I just knew
Jigoro Kano, probably.
not Jigoro Kano, Kimura.
Yeah.
Kimura. I know Kimura. I know his famous fights with
Helio.
Helio. That's about it. That my history goes back as far back as that. But this is great knowledge even for me. So I hope this will also bring in some insight. So my number two pick would obviously be Hojo Gracie. I mean, there is no one like him. I've never seen anyone like him. He also treats Marcelo Garcia like he's a white belt. Because Hojo Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is, I mean, what is that? It's dominating Jiu-Jitsu. I mean, he will do exactly the same thing to you that he'll do to me, to Peeyush, and everyone on the planet.
Bushesha.
And
Don't even count on him.
I mean, and you cannot do anything about it. Okay, I mean, there's nothing you can do. I mean, he's going to sit on top of you, choke you out. He's going to take your back, choke you out. Gi, no gi. I mean, If
Doesn't
there's
matter.
if there's anyone who is the top dog or the goat in jiu-jitsu, it has to be Hoist Gracie. No, yes, Hoist Gracie. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
but
no
we're
one.
talking
No,
about Hodger.
oh, sorry, I always miss names. So yeah, it's gonna be Hodger Gracie.
Yeah,
So the number second pick for me is gonna be the legend, the living legend. That's
Hodger Gracie.
Hodger Gracie.
So, as you rightly said, Roger Gracie is one of the best competitor of all time, best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy of all time in terms of the competition record. And today, people again talk about the Gordon Ryan being the GOAT, but Gordon hasn't competed in the gi, and that'll always be a question mark over his legacy. He'll be the no-gi greatest of all time. Um, we would have loved to see a timeline parallel where Hodger was going against um, Gordon, but I think guys like Hodger built up the road for a Gordon to be made,
Yes,
right?
100%.
Because he was in that training room under Danaher's influence as well, or Danaher getting influenced by Hodger as well. It was a mutual thing, which led to so many techniques which we see in Gordon's game now getting implemented, like the mount position and how Gordon is so great at it because Hodger used to be great at mount. Before earlier than that, who did we see dominate from mount? Not many people, right?
Mount till the last 2 years was supposed to be a not so
It
great
was a
move
mysterious position.
because
People,
I didn't like Mount at all because people always used to topple me, and I was into guard and playing bottom.
and the number one attack that people I think know from mount is an Americana. You ask someone what do you do from mount, they'll be like Americana.
So last month we just finished the whole Mount series of Gordon Ryan's Mount series, and suddenly we see why is it so powerful. We see why when Gordon Ryan sits on top of you, you can't even move. Forget about moving; you can't breathe, and you are tapping to pressure. So I think like we were discussing earlier, these things are available, my friends. We are not making this up in India. Some great minds have already done the hard work for us. Just pick it up, study, drill, make mistakes. Do not be afraid to make mistakes, and take a journey from there. So number three.
Number two for me.
Oh, it's not.
I did not say number two as
Oh, okay,
Hodger.
sorry.
So my number two is again going a little bit earlier in time. It will be Helio Gracie because Helio is undisputedly the father of the modern Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And when I say modern, I say post the judo or jiu-jitsu era, um, because he was the one who took, or as people say, because there is some dispute about that as well. When you go into the much more deeper history, he was the guy who was the fragile one, who was the smaller one in the family, and he took a sport which was considered a little bit brutish, a little bit more strength based, and as we discussed earlier, he made it more savvy towards the technical side. Okay, and I think that's a very important thing to note because Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu's USP all the way till now has been technique over strength. Okay, and again talking about similar size people, technique over strength, or people at least who do not do jiu-jitsu, against them even the technique will conquer them,
Yes.
right? So Helio was the one who challenged everyone, who took fights with people who were bigger than him, even won some, lost some, no problem. Kimura fight, we all know about it. But he was the one who imbued this philosophy of having much more better leverage, introducing the probably the guard position and making it better in jiu-jitsu. He was not the one who created guard. Obviously, the guard was there for a very long time, but he made the guard better. There's no doubt about it. And then he created a family of fighters who represented the Gracie train, like Hickson Gracie, Hoyce Gracie later on the line. Carlson Gracie was his brother, Carlson Gracie Jr. And the whole Gracie family, which came after Helio and Carlson Gracie Jr., Carlson Gracie Jr. did not compete as much as Helio did. And these guys just took the sport from, they gave it an identity, I would say. Okay. So my number two, Helio Gracie.
Nice, because I think without Helio Gracie, we would not have the word Brazilian behind
Right.
Jiu-Jitsu. Because yeah, I mean, if you go to any gym, at least in the country or even abroad, you see a nice poster of Helio Gracie gracing the one of the world's
And
inside the gym.
he was so passionate about the sport even when he was so old. Like Henna and Hiron,
Yeah.
they always talk about, oh, we learned this from our grandfather. Our grandfather passed this to
Even
us.
even the legend Henzo Gracie,
Yeah.
he talks about these memories with Helio so fondly. So obviously, yeah, I mean, some crazy guy starts doing things. The world tells him it's not going to work, and suddenly it's become the one of the biggest sports in the country. And in terms of self-defense, also after judo, I think if you mix judo and jiu-jitsu, there's nothing better for self-defense in the world. But yeah, we are still with our top number five picks. I'm at my number three. I'm gonna go with Rafa Mendes, obviously. Rafa Mendes, why?
That's an
Because
interesting one. Yeah, I want to hear.
yeah, Rafa Mendes, why? Because he showed the world that you do not have to spend hours and years of doing jiu-jitsu to be the greatest in the world. I mean, he was such a quick turnaround, and he started winning the ADCC when he was 19.
He was 19, but he has been training for the longest time.
No, but not. We had never seen before. However, we not seen
The
anyone
young champion.
at 19. I mean, he was not a biggest guy, and Hafa was also a huge gi guy. I mean, if you look at Hickson Cups and all the other cups, he basically is basically dancing around other black belts. And even his gym AOJ today is still producing some of the best in the world in the gi, no doubt. And I'm sure they also have a no gi program, which they are just gonna hit the world with sometime.
Yeah, I
Because
think this guy,
Kolabate is already.
Kolabate, is one of the prodigies.
I mean, Tainan is also about to debut. So Rafa Mendes, why? Because he's created this system where this smaller guy is kind of actually dominating some of the biggest guys, biggest names in the world of jiu-jitsu. Gi, okay? He
And
proved,
art of jiu-jitsu, it has really elevated the way a competitive team
oh my God.
fights.
I mean, we just dream to reach those kind of levels of a room where Guy Mendes is just holding the iPad and instructing people. Even his brother Guy Mendes is very close to him, but again, Hafa being the more celebrated Mendes
And also accomplished.
accomplished because these Rafa Mendes. So when I why I say number three is because I'm not saying because the kind of impact he's made in jiu-jitsu, but in my life as a jiu-jitero. Yeah, I mean, so when I watched Rafa Mendes, I watched him when I was already past 30. So I was like, oh my God, this guy is
Poetry in motion.
poetry in motion. I mean, you see him and he just flows. He's just doing things that I think nobody is still doing presently because the way he passes the guard, the way he takes the back, the way he chains submissions from everywhere. I mean, it's still very difficult to uh, you emulate that. Also, he's not competed with some of the easiest guys. His competition in the gi have been with some really, really hardcore people.
Cobrinia.
Cobrinia was his
big
number
leg.
number one nemesis. Cobrinia was unbeatable, and he's beaten him at least 3 or 4 times. Yeah. So the kind of impact that it brought in my life, saying, "Oh my God, this is also possible at 18." You know,
He made passing look so cool.
passing looked cool, and
Back
and
takes.
first it was just gi. Then he just debuted in the no gi, and no time he was getting people into his famous anaconda choke. Even if you watch some roles with him and Galva when they were together,
He submitted
yeah,
Galva,
Galva
with
with a anaconda choke. Galva for 20 minutes could not pass his guard. We've all know the monster that Andre Galvao is. Rafa Mendes is
bigger also.
so big. Rafa Mendes still is in his full sleeves rash guard. I don't know why he wears that, but it was unbelievable for me. Okay, he can do that to other people in the circuit, but to someone like Galvao was already an established grappler by then. He was already a multiple
I
time
think he was an ADC
champion, multiple time gi world champion. So and Rafa Mendes treating him like just another sparring partner was insane for me to just witness. So that's why, to me personally, it was something that hopefully I would become someday. You know, but difficult task. So that's why I chose him as number three.
Awesome. So my number three is going to be someone who really brought the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as a third generation or probably later generation into the public eye, into the huge phenomena that has become today. And that was the debut of Royce Gracie in UFC, right? Because if that night Royce would have lost, maybe not win in the fashion that he did, we would not be sitting here, right? Because that UFC tape is where everyone started their jiu-jitsu journey from. They used to watch those UFC tapes and be like, "Who the hell is this guy? What is this martial art?
What is he
Which is
doing?"
the sport?" He's beating people who are monsters, 7 feet, taekwondo, 10th degree black belt. Some big sumo guy who we thought this little guy will never take.
Ken Shamrock.
Ken Shamrock, people who have been a veteran of MMA in that era. So Horace Gracie is an absolute legend of the sport, and if he hadn't done on that night of 1993, I think it was April, the month of April, we wouldn't be sitting here, and that's an absolute fact. And it was not so long ago, just 30 years back. So he really shaped up how the jiu-jitsu was viewed as a martial art, because before that, yes, it was big. Yes, the Gracies were big. They were going to the Japanese promotions and winning it. But to do that in America, and the pop and the domino effect that it created after that was a big one for me. And Horace Gracie, less said, more
Yeah,
about it.
I mean, I think you're right. I agree with you because I think, and that was not sports jiu-jitsu, guys. You could even slap people. Groin shots were there. You could hold their hair, and it was
No holds barred.
no holds barred. And for jiu-jitsu to show, no, jiu-jitsu not being a striking art, also, I mean, no punches, no kicks. You don't practice that when you're practicing jiu-jitsu. Just closing the distance, taking people down, and basically doing whatever the hell you wanted to do. I think it's a great number three pick. Yeah, I did not pick him because I have not followed Hoist so much, but the impact that he has on jiu-jitsu is undeniable. You're right, absolutely. Yeah.
Who is your number fourth pick?
Number fourth pick would be one of the modern guys. I would say, for me, it has been Danaher. Why?
That's a good one.
Because Danaher has changed the way I look at jiu-jitsu. Thanks to him, my jiu-jitsu has improved in the way I've been looking to improve my game for the longest time. You know, through him and his students. Obviously, without him, there is no Gordon Ryan, there is no Gary Tonon, there is no, we don't even have a Craig Jones.
Don't have a modern jiu-jitsu
We don't
without
have a
that.
modern. So without Danaher's and his openness to teach, his the way he explains things, like we discussed, how he simplifies things from concept after concept, and makes it so accessible for people staying living in India also. Yeah, in this case, me. So Danaher has, if not even more than Marcelo, even more than Hodja, even more than Mendes, Dana has impacted my life directly because I follow his instructionals. And whatever little I know today is because he took the time, along with Bernardo Faria, and just opened his mind and his heart and said, take it. Let's make Jiu-Jitsu great again. So for that reason alone, for what he's done for the community and me personally in my journey as a Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, so it has to be John Danaher.
Yeah. So John Danaher was my number fourth pick as well, because the kind of impact he has had in last 10 years on the sport is nothing short of miracle. Because before this, jiu-jitsu was still considered as a good way of having a fun time, being a hobbyist at it. But if we are talking about wrestling, if we're talking about sambo, still people viewed jiu-jitsu as a little bit of an inferior sport, because of the intensity of the other sport and the non-systematic way in which jiu-jitsu was done. So he really made it very cohesive, and obviously he had help and insights from a lot of people, and that's what usually is. No man is an island. You always have people who you learn from, and even we as instructors, we learn from so many people. Probably will pass it on to our students, but the kind of instructionals revolution that Dana created, where you had 8 DVDs, that became the norm now, where 8 DVDs, you're studying 1 hour of content in those DVDs, each DVD, and then you start to, you know, uh, understand jiu-jitsu at a much more deeper level, much more conceptual level. So it really reformed the way how people taught jiu-jitsu, how students learn jiu-jitsu online, because earlier you would go to someone's website, you had to move from X position, you had to move from Y position. But watching the Dana's DVD, studying from his stuff, really revolutionized how the sport was carried forward.
Yeah, he just streamlined everything for me.
Yes.
He just brought the A, B's, and C's together for me. Otherwise, everything was a puzzle. Okay, today we spell apple. Tomorrow we'll do encyclopedia. The day after tomorrow we'll pick up a fancy name like Tarantula or something.
So if I have to say, if who is my greatest coach of all time, it will be Dana.
100%. 100%.
Because
Yeah.
I feel myself a direct student at this point.
Yeah, I think so.
Studied
All of
all
us.
of his
I think.
DVDs.
I think all the world, all the students in the world, because everybody's talking far side, near side. Before that, it was just left hand and right hand.
Right.
It was not the near shoulder or the far shoulder. It was not like so. So I think those jargons have caught on to us as instructors also, because that's what we study from. This that has also been passed directly to Gary Tonin. Obviously, he says like so, far side, near side, Gordon Ryan.
That's very interesting because yesterday I was listening to a podcast of Jason Rao, who is also like a Dana student, originally Matt Serra Academy. So he was like, oh yeah, when I started taking privates with Dana at the Blue Basement when he was in New York, I and people around him become so influenced by his method of teaching that when they instruct in their own academy, they carry along that verbiage or speaking fashion like
We do the
Dana.
same. I think we are not very conscious. Like
Right.
because you brought it in, I want to speak like him, because that's the most lucid way of transferring whatever knowledge that I have towards my students.
Exactly.
So I think it's the. So who's your number 4? Oh, we both choose Dana.
Dana.
So we're getting into number 5, and then we're tailing in towards the podcast. So my number 5 pick would be right now would be Gordon Ryan. I think so, because not for anything, how it has influenced me. I've been talking about these number 4 picks, how they have directly influenced me personally. Gordon Ryan has influenced me personally by just making it possible for me to think that jiu-jitsu can be big, because
By-
I am because we are organizing Strangle now.
By also forcing you to come on Instagram and post technique now
Yeah.
because of the IG exposure.
Yeah, I think it is important for people to understand that I know a few things and I want to really share it with the world, because somebody was kind enough to share it with me. So I'm kind of I'm just passing on what I've learned from others to others. Hopefully, if you're watching, if you like some of the things that I'm doing, just follow. But yeah, coming to Gordon Ryan has made a huge impact in the Indian subcontinent, at least in this country, where people are thinking of having jiu-jitsu as a career.
Right.
When that happens, things like Strangle make sense. That's why when we were sitting together and when we were ideating about Strangle, that's where we saw the growth, a potential of competition in the country. Without people like Gordon Ryan making the right kind of noises, even if you don't agree with him, you know, it made jiu-jitsu interesting for me. It made jiu-jitsu,
It introduced it to such a global audience.
yeah, and trash talking, other stuff. Otherwise, there's too much of bullshit about honor and all that nonsense around jiu-jitsu.
Hypocrisy.
Yeah. I mean, those things don't make for good entertainment. Those things make for good quotes on Instagram and good books, maybe. But if we have to make jiu-jitsu viable and make it lucrative as a business also, because at the end of the day, if you're not making money, all that big talk about it's changing my life, it's making me a better person, is not going to amount to anything. Let's be real, right?
100%.
So that's why I choose Gordon Ryan, because with him at the epicenter right now, especially in the Nogi scene, the world is looking at jiu-jitsu. The world is looking at jiu-jitsu in a good light or a bad light. Doesn't really matter for me. But jiu-jitsu is slowly becoming the buzzword when it comes to whenever people are talking MMA, boxing, or martial arts in general. Jiu-jitsu is very close to boxing and other bigger bigger martial arts that have been on for donkey's years. you know?
Right. So I would like you to guess my fifth one because he is also the person who made Jiu-Jitsu reach a big global audience.
I'm sure it's Joe Rogan.
It's not Joe Rogan.
Ray Jones.
No. Let me just give more
Okay.
detail. So, and he really impacted the growth of Nogi Jiu-Jitsu. So, Nogi Jiu-Jitsu, global audience, really changed the competitive scene worldwide.
Lachlan Giles.
You're way far off. Okay, I'll divulge it. It's Eddie freaking Bravo, guys. Okay.
Oh Jesus! How can I forget him?
This guy flies on the radar because now he's not active, but let's be real. 10 years ago, this guy was all the rage. The biggest series, or you can say franchisee of jiu-jitsu schools in the world is the 10th Planet, right?
I agree.
He has created a great economic model, as you said, for jiu-jitsu gyms to thrive. And he has built all that single-handedly just on the back of his one victory in the ADCC against the legend Hoyler Gracie. And to do that and have so much faith in the nogi aspect of jiu-jitsu when everyone in the world did gi jiu-jitsu. And for that, he was hated by the Gracie family for the longest time because he used to say, oh, in gi, we do not, in an MMA fight, we do not require a gi. Because what are you going to do? Are you going to hang off the grips when the person is shirtless in front of you? So his rubber guard, maybe it's not the best technique in today's world, but he laid the foundation of the nogi premise of jiu-jitsu, where he made people take notice that gi is going to be redundant. He was a visionary in that point of time. The EBIs, they changed the game how nogi jiu-jitsu was displayed to the world. A Gordon Ryan is not a superstar if there is no EBI. A Gary Tonon does not become a superstar if there is no EBI.
Craig Jones.
Right? Craig Jones, the EBI moment. So all these stars that we see today have one big EBI moment. And he has now gone on to combat jiu-jitsu, which is another fascinating aspect. And he has bet that is going to be the future of jiu-jitsu. So again, this guy is a visionary. He has created a great model of how Nogi Jiu-Jitsu should look like. He has a great franchisee in 10 Planet itself, some of the best human beings or collection of people. He might not have the most cutting edge technology, but we can see people from 10 Planet also who have taken note, like PJ Barge and these guys doing fantastic. Keith Krikorian at the world stage in ADCC, the Freakazoid brothers. So I think Eddie Bravo is a legend in our community. We all know how much we used to love watching those JRE episodes where Eddie Bravo was super high,
super
talking
high.
controversies and all the conspiracy theories. So this is a man who is very close to our heart as a jiu-jitsu competitor, athlete, or person.
100%, because I think that would be my honorable mention now. Because that you brought, I don't know how I skipped it. Because without Eddie Bravo, there is no modern jiu-jitsu. You're right. As much as John Dana has done to the sport, I think Eddie Bravo has done slightly more.
He was on the competition organizing side of it.
I mean, otherwise, if people like me wouldn't have any competition aspirations to get into, let's say, ABI or ADCC of the world, why would jiu-jitsu be popular?
And EBI was the first rule set where we were actually excited, right? Because, oh, the match has to finish and you have to try to finish it. There's no refs, no judge decisions, nothing. He cut away all the bullshit and he made escaping the back so popular, attacking the back so popular. And because of his rule set, the EBI rules, was born Danaher's tactics, the straight jacket system to attack from the back. People are not learning back escapes back then. Maybe only Hodger did, or people who were really at the highest level. But in an average gym, where your instructor was so good that he would just pass your guard, mount you, or just submit you from side control, he would never go and practice his back escapes. But EBI rules changed the way how we trained the back escapes, how we went into a philosophy of escaping the positions like arm bars, things like that.
I think great pick. I mean, I don't know why I didn't choose him at all, but yeah, I think it's one of the best picks of the day because a lot of people, a lot of us, a lot of you guys, I'm sure, don't know who Eddie Bravo is under all the Gordon Ryan and Craig Jones cloud that is over.
He's also now kind of shadow banned or banned on Instagram to do his conspiracy thing.
Yeah, but
which
I
is,
think if you want to look up Eddie Bravo, his vision in actually bringing about the revolution that he has brought about in the jiu-jitsu arena is unfathomable. And thank you, Mr. Eddie Bravo, for all that you've done for the sport. So let's quickly move on to the next one. Are you okay with that? Yeah.
I think we should. This should be our last topic.
Yeah, this should be the last topic. So I think, so I hope you guys have had fun so far. We had a great time because we can talk jiu-jitsu even when we are sleeping. Yeah. So this is not about what we know or what we want you to know. It's a knowledge sharing platform where we are trying to tell you what we think is good and bad. It's for you to take it or not take it. But if you think it is something worthwhile investigating into, please hit us up anytime at Rebel Radio. We are on Instagram. We also have a page on YouTube where this episode will be put telecast. You can hit us up on Rebel MMA India, or you can hit Peeyush up in magicman.13 or me at Rajiv Khati Official. And we'll be more than happy to answer any queries related to martial arts. If you want anything about my personal life, I cannot help you with that. So it was fun. It was a great episode. I think this is what we need to share, more Indian context, more the podcast more addressing what we are doing and what we should be doing and making it more ambited towards this beautiful country of ours.
Rajiv, just because you mentioned the Indian context, let's bring this up because we Indians, especially some of the Indian gyms, I don't know where they are, how they exist, they feature a lot on this page called Mcdojo Life.
Oh yeah.
So every single day, some guy randomly who doesn't even do jujitsu will send me, DM me a video of some random guy, some random martial art instructor teaching a fake ass move which would never work in a million years, like showing a fully locked RNC and then escaping it in the weirdest way possible. Some girl is
Putting
some
her chin down.
cute looking girl is showing that move, and then they are just flipping over the person. And even worse, the chin conditioning. Let's talk about that.
Oh my God, guys, there is a thing called CTE. Okay, I do not want to get into it because it's not my domain. There is a thing called CTE. Yeah, our chin is not a muscle, guys. Okay, you do not break muscles in the gym and go home, eat good food, and rest, and your muscle swells up. Our chin doesn't work like that. Okay, uh, you get rocked once, your chin gets into your body, your brain starts thinking, "Oh my God, I need to save this guy's life." So it shuts down. If you are getting shut down in 10 seconds, next time it's going to be 8 seconds. And after continuous nonsense chin conditioning sessions in your gym, you'll be, somebody touches your chin, boom, you go to the floor. Piyush, I mean, please, there's a thing called CTE in, just type that in Google and please find it for yourself.
Concussions, guys, concussions. So you don't want to take unnecessary concussions. And if you are a martial art gym, and I remember this guy Manas from team Dojang, he posts a lot about this gym called Aztecs Manipur. And these guys are notorious for posting chin conditioning videos where somebody is just hitting continuously someone in the face in the name of making them tough. And this is such a nonsensical, such a stupid approach to fighting. You do not condition your brain, guys. You can condition your shins, you can condition your abs, you can condition whatever you want, as he said, the muscle, but you cannot condition your brain. You can only condition it to go to sleep very, very quickly.
Yes.
So please avoid doing that. If you see someone or a gym nearby doing that, please call them out, because we as an Indian community, we are trying to send on one hand UFC fighters to the UFC, and then we are getting also side by side featured on this page called Mcdojo Life. Almost like in every third post of his, there is some Indian guy in the south, Indian guy in whatever place, I don't know, because we don't show the they don't show the technique, they don't show the name of the gym. But yeah, guys, this is really horrible. What do you have to say, the final words for that?
Final words is, guys, train hard, train safe. I repeat, train hard, train safe, but don't train rough. There's a huge difference between intensity and roughness, guys. We'll always be here to help you guys out with whatever little knowledge we know. Just hit us up. We're always more than happy to just share this knowledge with all of you, and we'll be more than happy to come back again and with some more interesting topics. If you want to let us know the kind of topics that we need to talk about or discuss on this podcast, so let us know. This is me and Peeyush saying goodbye. Us.
See you guys.